Good morning to all. I'm going to give the interpreters a bit of a break. We'll switch over to English for this presentation. It's a pleasure to be here with you all this morning on behalf of the Organization of American States. For me personally, this is a pleasure. This is now my third edition of ENISE that I have been able to participate in, and I am very grateful for the ongoing collaboration and cooperation we have with the government of Spain and also with the Spain Cyber Institute here in INCIBE. So I am pleased to give you a different perspective this morning on international cooperation. And here I'm going to focus a little bit on the Western Hemisphere and what we are doing within the English and Spanish-speaking Latin American and Caribbean countries. I will try to be brief, but I think some of the things that I will look at this morning are very much in line with the previous two presentations that we've heard. So overall, the OAS, SICTE, the department of which I am responsible, and our cybersecurity program in particular, when we look at strengthening cyber capacities, capacity building in the cyber domain, we focus on a three-pronged approach, if you will. We look at policy development, so the design and implementations of cyber strategies and policies. We look at capacity building, and this is either through incident response, the establishment of CERTs, or technical capacity building. And finally, a third area that looks at research and outreach, our awareness-raising activities. So I'm going to just touch briefly on each of these areas, but then I'll wrap up my presentation this morning looking specifically at two of our most recent technical publications that we think may be of interest to you. Here we go. I'm going to look at first at some of the region's cybersecurity strategies. And we got an excellent presentation this morning on where Spain's cybersecurity strategy is today. It is no surprise that Spain is a leader in this field, but I'm pleased to report that Latin America is really moving quickly in this regard as well. So today, after 14 years of our program, I am very pleased to report that 10 countries of the Western Hemisphere, Latin America and the Caribbean, I'm not including the United States and Canada, 10 countries today have a national cyber strategy. 3 more are currently underway. We have 8 requests in the pipeline right now. We have a very long list of requests, primarily from our English-speaking Caribbean countries, but also importantly, and I wanted to highlight this fact, 3 countries, 3 of our member states have actually requested assistance in implementing the strategy. And so here I just wanted to underscore the fact that while it's incredibly important to have the strategy, it's also important, equally important, to have an implementation or a plan of action for how that strategy will be implemented. So fortunately, there have been a couple of different efforts throughout the region to begin full implementation of their strategies. Ambassador Olmos just referred to confidence building measures. This region is, of course, a leader in that field, but the Western Hemisphere, through OAS efforts, is also making important progress on developing confidence building measures in cyberspace. So just earlier this year, we approved 2 new confidence building measures. Very simple, modest measures, but progress is progress, and so we are very pleased to report that. The next meeting to look at additional measures will take place early next year. In terms of capacity building, and I'm sure many of you here in the audience are familiar with our CCERTS network, we have quite an ambitious network now of 21 different CERTs throughout the hemisphere who are connected, either sharing services, news feeds, sharing resources, or more importantly, sharing early warning alert systems, defacement alerts, what have you. So this is a notable increase over the past 10 years. In terms of capacity building, we have a number of different programs. We can honestly say that we have reached all 34 member states of the organization. In the past 14 years, we've reached over 15,000 different participants, in addition to an additional 7,000 just through online courses or webinars. We are going to be wrapping up about 1,000 more by the end of this year. And I'm going to look at just two courses that I think may be of particular interest to you, or at least that I'm particularly proud of and would like to share the results with you this morning. So one program that we have in coordination with the Citibank Foundation, is called Creating a Career Path in Digital Security. This is a program we started about 2 years ago. We are now in 6 countries. And the purpose of this is to identify young people with an interest in ICT or cyber capacity or cybersecurity. And we have specifically identified them from more vulnerable communities throughout the Americas. We link them up, particularly through different academic institutions. We provide basic training, a certificate course, and then we ultimately link them up with private sector companies, either for internships or eventually for job placement opportunities. So today we have trained 283 different students, with a couple hundred more on track for training in 2019. Of those students trained, and again, this is an example of our excellent collaboration with INCIBE, Spain here, 20 of those participants were given a full scholarship to participate in this summer cyber boot camp held here in July. Many of you are familiar with the boot camp as well. And so again, this is just a fantastic opportunity for these young people, not only to develop their skills training, but also to share experiences and to meet other young people from other parts of the world. Another program of which I am particularly proud is our Cyber Women Challenge. This is an event that we organized together with the Government of Canada and Trend Micro, and basically we are helping to form women hackers. The good kind, of course, but again, this has been a fantastic opportunity to reach 400 women, young women, students, and professionals alike from throughout the region, and providing them with some basic skills training. Basically, these are capture the flag type activities that we have done now in 7 different countries, and we've got 6 more on track for the end of the year. Just a couple quick shots here. As you all know, as I hope you all know, October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. The OAS has been very active in promoting this month. We just had a week-long cyber symposium at the end of September, beginning of October, and these are just some of the shots. We had 8 different tracks. I think some of you may have actually been present there, and this is just a quick snapshot of some of the work that we were doing in Washington earlier this month. The third area, and this is where I'm going to spend a little bit more attention this morning, is on the development of our research. And here I can say, not very immodestly, that the OAS is actually quite a leader in developing technical papers and white papers, if you will. There are really not very many other organizations who are doing this type of technical analysis for our region. So you can see here just a snapshot of some of the work. The one in the middle there, 2016, Cybersecurity, Are We Ready in Latin America and the Caribbean? Some of you may have heard me present this one a couple of years ago. We're actually working on the revised edition now, 2 years later, to see how has our region, how have our 34 member states improved their capacities in the past 2 years. So I wouldn't be surprised if you heard a presentation on that new edition next year, 2019. But today I'm going to focus on 2 specific technical papers, the 2 there at the end that just came out earlier this year. The first is called Critical Infrastructure Protection in Latin America and the Caribbean, and I know that several of you here in the audience are critical infrastructure operators. The purpose of this specific report was to just to provide some updated information on the impact of cybersecurity incidents on different aspects of critical infrastructure. And we produced this primarily with the objective of raising awareness and hopefully also helping to shape the policy making and decision making of not only the critical infrastructure operators, but other government authorities. So this publication is available on our website, but I'm going to share just a few highlights and some of our recommendations and conclusions. Of course, as we know, all countries define critical infrastructure differently, but based on some international best practices, we defined these 10 areas. And from the approximately 500 respondents that we had from 17 different countries, we can see that the results of this particular survey showed that 29% of our respondents were from central government, 19% from telecommunications or ICT enterprise, and 9% from the banking industry. Here, the two things that I would like to highlight the most from this report is that of all of the critical infrastructure operators interviewed, 53% of them, or at least 53% of those who responded to our survey, indicated that they had the ability to detect a cyber incident. That is just over half of all organizations surveyed. Of those, 73% indicated that they had, in fact, detected at least one incident in their operations during the previous 12 months. And at the same time, that 69% of them indicated an increase in the number of incidents to their critical infrastructure over the past year. Perhaps more importantly or concerning, however, is the fact that of those 500 organizations surveyed, only 57% have a dedicated budget for cybersecurity. We find this incredibly concerning. And by dedicated budget, we refer to both human resources and financial resources. So, of course, the fact that there is not a budget dedicated to cybersecurity significantly limits their ability to effectively respond or mitigate the impact of any cyber incident. The recommendations here, I don't think, are going to be anything novel to anyone here in this audience. There's a full set of recommendations in the report, but what we would encourage is just taking advantage of Cybersecurity Awareness Month, that everyone should employ very strong passwords, very strong passwords, or multi-factor authentication methods. Everyone should regularly be updating their antivirus and security software packages. And of course, it goes without saying, everyone needs to be investing much more resources, both human and financial, into their cyber capacities. I'm going to refer now to a second report that we did that looks at one specific angle of critical infrastructure. And we chose to look at the banking sector first, particularly because of the unique relationship between the bank and their clients. This is a report that we launched earlier this month. And it starts with a series of different contributions from SWIFT, from the World Economic Forum, and different banking industries. And then, like our previous report, goes into the results of a survey. And in this case, we surveyed both banks and individual users or clients. So we looked at about 190 banks from 19 different countries. And you can see here the breakdown by a small, medium, or large bank. And also interviewed just over 700 users, the majority of whom were males between the ages of 25 and 44. And what did we learn from this report? Well, from the banking side of things, primary challenges include, again, the fact that there is not yet full attention paid to cybersecurity. So in this case, there is, of the banks that responded, 74% indicated that they do have a team, and by a team that may mean one person, but they do have the resources allocated to address cybersecurity incidents. And also, interestingly enough, for the banks, I believe all of them have some sort of board of directors or higher authority. Only 72% of them receive some sort of regular report about what sort of cyber incidents have taken place within their banking facility. On the right side of the screen, you can see a little bit more detailed information about the types of cyber incidents that have affected the banks. Most of them, particularly for the large banks, include malicious code or malware, and then at a second level, more of phishing type activities. Again, here coming back to resources, but I can't underscore the importance enough. We have found that interviewing the banks, only 2% of their net income is dedicated to cybersecurity capacity response or capacity building. And while this does indicate a 42% increase over previous years, still 2% is what I would consider a fairly modest allotment of resources for cybersecurity. At the same time, the cost of a cyber incident to these banks was about 1.5% of their income. You can see here the breakdown by bank. This is the average cost in the round circle. This is the average cost per bank in 2017 of the cost to mitigate a cyber incident. So all in all, again, just the banks that were surveyed for this report, approximately, it's estimated that just over $800 million in the region to address or mitigate the impact of cyber incidents in the banking industry. If we turn now to look at the users, this is also some interesting information here. We can see that, again, there were about 722 users surveyed. 88% of them use online banking or some form of an online banking service to conduct their banking transactions. Of the 12% that said they did not use any form of online banking, it's largely because of a distrust in the services provided, or they are simply not interested. I actually don't give too much credence to the small ball there that says my bank does not offer digital media. I don't know of any bank today that is not offering some sort of online service. In terms of what they are using online banking for, you can see sort of a brief overview there of who's using online banking either to make a transfer or even just to check their balance. And here I do think it's still quite telling that as our culture in Latin America and the Caribbean, although 53% of the respondents indicated they are using their smartphone or some online banking to check a transaction, 29% are still actually going to the bank and having that face-to-face interaction. And I think that's quite interesting. At the same time, I think the results are curious because it's also showing there at the bottom that at least of those who responded, and again, I do point out the fact here that many of our respondents were young men between 25 and 44, they indicated that more of them are using cryptocurrencies to perform transactions than actually writing a check. And again, I'm just reporting the results of our survey. I'm not 100% convinced that this is really indicative of what's happening in our hemisphere. I don't think that the average citizen today yet is using cryptocurrencies, but I'm just here to report the facts. In terms of challenges for our users, they do say that they are taking measures. steps to protect themselves, and here, again, the most basic are just ensuring that they have an updated antivirus or security measures, or that they are accessing their accounts from a reliable computer or a known computer system. In terms of the impact of the incident on a user, again, just of those who responded, 27% indicated that they had been a victim. I'm surprised. I was surprised when I saw this number. I would have thought it would have been higher, quite frankly. I myself have been the victim numerous times of online banking incidents. However, only 27%, fortunately, indicated that they had been, most of which were a result, 50%, half, were the result of some kind of phishing or social engineering incident. However, and I do find this quite telling, is that of those who indicated they had been a victim, 49%, almost half, of course, confessed that this did indeed affect their image or their perception about the security of their bank or banking service. Again, here the recommendations are not going to come as a surprise to any of you here, either for the banks themselves or for the users, but I'll just take a moment in wrapping up here to indicate that for the banking industry, we would, of course, encourage them all to increase the resources allocated, both in terms of human and financial resources. Just as importantly, we would encourage all banks to develop and implement a crisis management strategy to prevent and mitigate the impact of cyber incidents. And also to increase the use of emerging technologies, big data and artificial intelligence, which again may be easier for some of the larger banks, but across the board, this is what we believe could help the banking industry. And for users, the same thing, no surprises at all. Strengthen your password. Long, strong passwords, alphanumeric with different special characters. Make sure that you're regularly upgrading your antivirus and security software. And also, please make sure that you are actually reporting cyber incidents. If you are the victim of some sort of online banking incident, let your bank know. This helps us both in terms of information gathering and also increasing response mechanisms. So I will close again just highlighting as a part of our international cooperation efforts. We work with many different sectors of society, different governments, our 34 member states, our permanent observer states such as Spain. We could not get much of our work done without the fantastic collaboration we have with different private sector, enterprise, universities, and civil society alike. As was previously mentioned, the OAS and our cybersecurity program, we also place incredible importance on the importance of international cooperation. We do our best to participate in all types of multilateral, regional, and international fora. And here I will just highlight one, the Global Forum for Cyber Expertise, which over the past few years really has become known as the international leader for sharing best practices and expertise in cybersecurity. And the OAS and INCIBE cybersecurity program was just recently made the regional hub for the GFCE. So we're very proud of that accomplishment. So again, with that, I thank you all very much for your attention, for your interest. My thanks again to Spain and to INCIBE for including the OAS in this fantastic event. Thank you very much.